what a waste if I don't ask you about some sports.
Let's go.
So I want 3 hot takes. We only have 3 big markets in town. So I need one about the Pirates, one about the Steelers, and one about the Penguins. Make it steamy.
Oh, okay. I'll start with the easy stuff. With the Pirates, learn to be patient. That's it. Because people want stuff to happen right away. The current situation that this group is in, this organization's in, talking about an organization that has very little talent at the top of it and very little depth in the middle. And you can't build a house if you don't have a solid foundation. The Pirates don't have one. It's going to take time to build one. You either want to wait for it to happen or you don't. So either get comfortable or get out, because this team's not going to be good for a couple years. They still got a couple draft picks that have to start to really build that foundation. They have a couple guys that they need to see what they are and if they are part of the future. And if they're not, then they got to move on. But if there's one guy I trust to help build that foundation, it's Ben Cherington, because he's done it before in his career. He did it in Boston. He did it under Theo Epstein, and Theo Epstein did it in 2 different places. So if you don't want to listen to what I'm telling you, go look up the results for yourself. Go do the research. You'll find the same things that I'm telling you are true. So as far as the Pirates go, you either get comfortable and get ready for the wait or go find something else to do because you're wasting your time.
Interesting, because I actually wanted to I wasn't sure if you were going to go there, but if you were, I was actually going to say, like, are you sure that the McCutchen and Cueto drop the ball thing was like a blip on the radar, and like it's really just been 20 plus years of like the same old thing?
No, that 3 years, 2013 to 2015. I hate when people try to discount it as if it didn't matter. It did. It mattered. And if nothing else, it showed you what could be. It gave you that glimpse, that precursor of this is what happens when you're actually on the right track. Now, did they follow through after that? No, that's what the problem was. They tasted success between 2013 and 2015, which, by the way, Andrew McCutchen, I like to remind people, Andrew McCutchen during that time period was pretty much the best player in baseball that wasn't named Mike Trout. Like that's how good he was in that
He was
span.
a beast.
So much so that like in 2017, when he started to decline, despite still being a pretty good player, everybody's like, oh, he's washed up. I'm like, no, he was just that good. That decline came from so high and it was such a far trip down that people think it was just so terrible. No, he just went from being really good to like slightly better than human. And you try to remind that to people. But yeah, that time period, I tell people all the time, you don't have to look at it as, oh, well, maybe it was just an aberration. No, that was things going the right way. They just didn't have the right things in place to keep it moving forward. But I'll come back to this. If I trust anybody to figure it out and start from the beginning and repeat the process over and over again, it's Ben Cherington, because he's already done it.
All right, so on to the Steelers. And what's your hot take?
There's a couple. I'll go with this one. Stop panicking about the offense. It's going to be better. I told people this last fall, and I have a couple people that I can direct you to that will confirm this. I told them Matt Canada is going to be the next offensive coordinator, and this offense is going to be better because you don't bring in Matt Canada to be a position coach, not a guy who turned Pitt into a 40-point per game offense 5 years ago. You know, he had Pitt scoring ridiculous numbers of points, and the quarterback on that team ended up going into the NFL when I don't think anybody thought that was possible. Did you really think Nathan Peterman would end up in the NFL? Matt Canada's offense made it look a lot better than it was. And I have to remind people, because I'm like, hey, did you like when Pitt beat Penn State? Did you like when they beat Clemson? You know what they did in those games? They scored 40 plus in both of them. Matt Canada had a lot to do with that. So if Matt Canada could do that with Pitt's offense 5 years ago, imagine what he can do with Ben Roethlisberger, a rebuilt offensive line, and the best running back in the draft, who just happened to be the career rusher at Alabama, which, by the way, turns out really good running backs. So just saying, a guy like that in that offense is going to make it a lot better. Don't panic. As far as the Penguins, enjoy what you have. You have it better than most people. Stop freaking out. Like, it seems weird that every message will give you stop freaking out. Go talk to a Maple Leafs fan. If you're that frustrated about what you're seeing, Go talk to a Maple Leafs fan. They haven't been out of the first round of the playoffs since 2004. Okay, 5 years after that, the Penguins won their first Stanley Cup in the Crosby-Malkin era. And Leafs fans are still waiting for this first trip out of the first round. And they haven't won a championship since 1967, which, by the way, that was the year the Penguins started.
Right.
Get a little perspective. Like, you're talking about the most successful franchise, or at least one of the top 3 most successful franchises in the salary cap free agent lockout era of the NHL. You got it better than most. Let's stop with the chicken little skies fall and stuff, because I get it. And this is coming from a guy who remembers when they won in 91. I think I was 9 years old when they went back to back in 91 and 92. And I remember thinking it was the greatest thing in the world. And I didn't know if it would happen again. And then it did. And now I'm like, you know what? We got it better than most. And sometimes just relax and remember sometimes.
We definitely have it better than most. I mean, there's few people that are going to see this many cups in their lifetime after the salary cap era. But so
I was lucky to witness Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, and Sidney Crosby. And I'm not even 40 yet.
Right, and you haven't even continued the list. Like you had Malkin, you had Letang. Like we brought on a Jerome Iginla. Like these, there are amazing names that have been in Pittsburgh.
God, 2013. Oh.
Who was the guy who's so old and then like we won a cup with him a couple years back. No.
Bill Guerin, and then
it was our last one, the last one that we won.
Oh, I got to think back.
It's escaping me. It was like my hashtag that I kept using, and now I can't think of the goddamn name.
It wasn't Eaton, was it? Was it Eaton?
No.
It'll come back to me.
I'll throw it once I go back into my old tweets. I'll throw it in the I'll throw it in the description of the show. But yes. How do you think about Sullivan? Do you think that he's on the hot seat at all, or do you like? It's interesting that he's been around for as long as he's been around for a hockey coach. It's not typical to be around this long. You know, usually you got like a 5-year stay, and usually they ship you out.
It feels like that. It feels like with every hockey coach that's hired, they should have like the asterisk at the bottom for like infomercials, results not typical. It does feel like that way. But if there's any coach, and someone's going to yell in my ear about this later on, if there's any coach in the current era that at least has a bedrock principle or bedrock of principles that fit the current modern game, it's Mike Sullivan. He walked in the door talking about 3 things: possession, pursuit, and pace. Those being like the 3 pillars of his philosophy. They've stood up over time. Those things stand up over time. If you watch the most successful hockey teams right now in the NHL, possession of the puck has always been important. Pursuit defensively and how well you're able to create difficult situations and turn those into transition offense and score. We saw the Islanders do quite a bit of it. And the pace of the game has changed. Can you drive the pace of the game, and can you actually dictate terms and bring the action to the other team in a more smothering fashion? Those are elements of the game that even since Mike Sullivan got to Pittsburgh have not eased up over time. Now, there have been small little more, specific details that have changed and that have not gone well, goaltending among them, which might be the first thing on the list for me. But the bedrock principles Mike Sullivan has, they stand up well over time, both in his time period here and how the global game of hockey looks right now.
Yeah, I hate to be the person that's like, the goaltending was the problem, blah blah blah. But there were a couple games that would have gone the other way if everything but a few basically gimmies like didn't go in. But
I've been telling people the difference between the Penguins and the Islanders in that series is that the Islanders had 2 healthy goaltenders that they trusted, and the Penguins didn't.
And they showed the fuck up.
It did. It made all the difference in the world, because if Mike Sullivan could have gone to a healthy Casey DeSmith, he would have. He wouldn't have had Tristan Jarry play that long, and things probably wouldn't have gone the way they did. But since Casey DeSmith had injury issues. They didn't trust Maxime Legacy with good reason, and that was it.
I mean, that's a total wild card.
Absolutely.